And
Yeah.
I'm the chair of an organization called Prevent Cancer Now. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about what cancer is and why it grows, and also about cancer prevention, and then Samantha will talk about the what is available when you have already been diagnosed with cancer. Now, to talk about the cancer incidence in Canada, this data just came out this spring from the Canadian Cancer Society and Statistics Canada, and it's kind of hard to see the numbers on it, but in various provinces and territories in Canada, the rate is varying between about 200 and it's about 340 per 100,000 up in the Yukon, to Newfoundland, where it's 430. So 340 to 430 cases per 100,000 people, and this is standardized for a standard age range. Now, it's kind of hard to figure out really what's happening when you have the data at that in that format. Back in 2001, we actually had more fine-grained data, which shows that cancer incidence varies really widely in different areas of Canada. And at that time, Newfoundland was one of the lower areas for cancer incidence rather than the highest. So things are changing over time, and there's a big difference depending upon where you live in the probability of you getting cancer. So the people are not really all that different across Canada. So this is something else, and so this gives us a good idea that there's something we can do. There's probably a lot of things we can do to prevent cancer, because cancer is not a single disease that's caused by one germ or something like that. It's a very complex disease, and there are contributing factors that basically add up as you go along. So cancer, this is a very sensitive device. Basically, cancer is when you have cells that have damaged DNA. These cells are not behaving normally. They're growing when they should not be growing. They're not dying when they should be dying, and this causes problems. Cancer is treatable to some extent. It's more treatable today than it used to be. And it can happen to people from all ages or backgrounds or cultures. We're finding that, it's been predicted that by 2030 we're going to have 40% more cases of cancer in Canada. So this will be a big burden on the healthcare system and on families and so on. And a lot of those cases will be amongst older people, because older people tend to get more cancers. But if you actually look at the incidence according to age groups, the older people are less likely to get cancer these days than they used to be. There's just going to be a whole lot more of them, a whole lot more older people, because our population is aging. But the actual incidence is rising within the younger adults, and it's rising fairly quickly. So this indicates that there's something changing in our society, in our environment, that is causing cancer. And there's probably lots of things that are contributing. So I'm going to give you a whole bunch of ideas today. And the idea is not that you just go, oh my goodness, there's so much I could possibly do, I can't do it. What you do is, what I'm asking you to do is to say, okay, there's a few things here. Today I can do one thing, tomorrow I can do something else, and then gradually you can go step by step in cancer prevention. But if you're given a lot of information, what can happen to people is they go, oh my goodness, and they're like deer in headlights. And so that's what I'm asking you not to do. So a lot of things can contribute. Things in your environment, the air, the water, the food, infections, activities, your circumstances, whether you live right next to a busy road or a factory, or whether you live in a pristine natural environment. About 5% of cancers are considered to be genetically linked, which is not to say that if you have the wrong genes, you're destined to have cancer, but that's only 5%. What about that other 95%? It's off, but given all that, it's very complex, so it's often not possible to say why one person gets cancer. All of our statistics and so on say if you have 1,000 people, then a quarter of them may have had cancer because of this or that. But for one person, it's often very, very difficult, so it's not worth beating yourself up over why you in particular got cancer. Move on. So basically what we want to do is to reduce the load. We want to avoid that tipping point where you go from having healthy cells to having cancer. So there are some things that everybody knows. You should be fit, you shouldn't be too fat, don't smoke, eat a largely plant-based, organic diet, and be careful in the sun. And those are things you hear all the time. Foods that you may consider buying organic, there's a list in your little book that's on your desk, on your chair. These have the largest numbers of pesticides and the most toxic pesticides, on average. But you're much better off to eat non-organic vegetables than to eat junk food, obviously. Somebody said, oh, but if I can't buy organic celery, should I buy McDonald's? No. And when you're cooking your food, if you scorch your food, then you can produce carcinogens within your food. So it's better to use slow cooking methods and don't use the non-stick pans. Use something like stainless steel or steel or cast iron. Mm-hmm. And glass is better than plastic, especially for putting in the microwave oven. You really don't want to put plastic in the microwave oven. So talking about plastics, there's little recycling symbols. They actually designate different types of plastics, and we've got plastics in a large number of things. And some of them actually are more toxic than others, and you can avoid some that are more toxic. Vinyl is one of the most toxic monomers. The building block of vinyl is very toxic. Vinyl also must contain a lot of toxic ingredients to make it work. It's impossible to recycle properly, and if you burn it, you produce dioxin. So it's best to avoid vinyl if you can. Then there's the polystyrene, which is very similar to vinyl, not in terms of the problems. And other means you really don't know. It might contain bisphenol A, which is known to disrupt the hormone systems. So there's a lot of choices. Plastics can also have things in them to make them soft, and these chemicals called phthalates can also affect the way the hormones act in the body and can contribute to development of cancers in reproductive organs and the breast and so on. Just your personal care products, if you have a choice, then it's best to avoid fragrances, to use the simpler products if you can, and to avoid the antibacterial chemicals, triclosan or triclocarban. And there are resources that list ingredients that are better to avoid if you can manage it on the internet. In terms of the indoor environment, we spend a lot of our time indoors, probably too much time indoors. So there's a lot of potential things. There's off-gassing from furnitures, from the flooring, and so on. So the things that you smell, they're called volatile organic compounds, and they can come from a wide variety of things. So it's better to, when you're renovating, when you're painting, to choose products that don't have the fragrances and that are low VOC. Then there's a lot of chemicals that can be in dust. these are non-volatile chemicals. There can be molds, there can be a lot of other things, including persistent organic pollutants, sometimes known as POPs. And these can include flame retardants and permanent press or stain repellent and anti-stick chemicals. There's actually been a bit of a fuss about flame retardants because it turns out they don't stop fires as much as they should, but they're building up in everybody's bodies, and they can contribute to mechanisms that can develop into cancer. These chemicals that are added to your clothes, they don't stay in your clothes. People can develop rashes and so on. So obviously they're not staying in your clothes. And these non-stick chemicals are in so many different things. It's amazing. They're now in ski wax. They're not just in pots and pans. They can be added to things like windshield washer fluid, lots of things. So you do have to watch out for things like Teflon and these repellents, because these chemicals last for a really long time. And we do have to be concerned about infants, because mother's milk can be one of the largest sources of these chemicals. Mother's milk is by far and away the best food for a baby, but the baby does get chemicals through its mother's milk as well. But that's not to say you shouldn't breastfeed. So you can choose very simple things to clean your house, and you probably save money and be healthier for it. You should also think about minimizing your exposure to radiation. We all know about ionizing radiation, things like radioactive chemicals and from power plants, and also from X-rays. And so, we do have to be concerned about not demanding a lot of X-rays or CT scans if you don't really need them, if a doctor suggests them. Say, well, so how is this going to change what we do depending upon what we find from the scan? And to be fair, the scanning is much lower dose radiation than it used to be. We're now realizing that the radiation that comes from our cell phones and Wi-Fi and so on also, it can be contributing to cancer. Within the last 2 years, the evidence since the International Agency for Research on Cancer indicated that that kind of radiation was a possible carcinogen. There have been several other very large studies showing quite decisively that you can increase the risk of brain tumors with putting your phone right next to your head. There's a large series of breast cancers from women who carry their phones in their bras, and there's good evidence of sperm damage and DNA damage associated with laptop use right on the lap, and also carrying phones in the pockets. And just coincidentally, testicular cancer in young men is the most rapidly rising cancer in that population. So if you have these devices, keep them away. And there are tips about that too in your little package. So with these wireless devices, distance is your friend, because the exposure falls off rapidly. It's inverse square. So at twice the distance, you have a quarter the exposure. And there are lots of other things that we can talk about, and there's a whole list of all of these tips that a lot of which I've touched on today, and we can talk about those later in our discussion time. So thank you very, very much. And I'll pass this along to Samantha.
On is if somebody has been impacted by cancer. Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Is that better? Yeah. Not really? No. I have a very soft voice, and I apologize. So I'll begin again. My name is Samantha, and I run the Ottawa Regional Cancer Foundation. So we provide support to families within Eastern Ontario. We provide support. No, I'll just use this one. That's the.
Wait, Mike is okay.
That's okay.
All right. So we provide support to families within Eastern Ontario who have been impacted by cancer. So if you or someone you love has been touched by cancer, you can give us a call and we can provide some support. That's the picture there of our MapleSoft Center. We're located on Alta Vista. So this is the building here where we do our support, which is called cancer coaching. So the Ottawa Regional Cancer Foundation has actually been around for 20 years. We were originally just a fundraising organization, raising money for different cancer care activities within Eastern Ontario, things like supporting new research and new state-of-the-art treatment which we've helped with. But then in 2011, we opened up that MapleSoft Center and started providing cancer coaching. So we still do all the fundraising we used to do, we just now have this extra element of support for families who have been touched by this disease. So the cancer coaching program provides one-on-one support for people who have been impacted by cancer, but also their friends, their families, the support network. So that means we see cancer patients, people who are in treatment, people who are post-treatment, but also the caregivers, so the spouse, the children, anybody in that friend network who is looking for support, they can come and meet with our cancer coaching team and get some support. We also offer group coaching. So we have coaching groups such as a Coping with Cancer group, a caregivers group. So people are able to connect with people who may be going through the same thing and share and create a sort of support network for themselves. The picture here is of our multi-faith and meditation room that's in the center. So there was many different community groups, religious and spiritual centers who donated many different books for that suite. So that's available to everybody who comes. And of course, there's also the interpretation support. So if anybody's needing any language support, we are able to get an interpreter in when you're meeting with your coach. So some of the benefits of cancer coaching. So it can help people better understand the disease. So the cancer coach is able to provide more time with you to go over what the diagnosis means, what the treatment means, and help you develop a plan to stay healthy while you're going through this. Oftentimes people have about 7 minutes with their oncologist and they feel that they don't have enough time to ask the questions they want to ask. So our cancer coaching team gives you that extra time to ask those questions and find the resources and information you need. The cancer coaching team also helps you connect to other resources in your community that could help you. For instance, if you're looking for more complementary therapies, we can help you find places that offer that. Also dealing with common side effects to the treatment, so managing pain. Some people also will deal with things like brain fog or chemo brain, so just hard time concentrating or multitasking. The coach can help you develop a plan to help better manage those symptoms. It can also be helpful with managing stress and fatigue, so especially with the caregivers, so people who are supporting their loved one. There can be a lot of stress there, so making sure the caregiver has the support and guidance that they need to be the best caregiver for their loved one, but also to best care for themselves, because oftentimes that's forgotten about. And the house is always very busy, so you can also meet many other people who are going through the same things and really connect and create a support network. As the bottom line, the coaching can really help improve health and well-being. So even if you have been diagnosed with cancer, there are still lots you can do to help yourself feel healthy. So there's just our website there, so you can find out more information. The website's also on the notebook in front of you, and there's also the postcard that has more information that's in the packets that was on the chair. And you can always give us a call or just come visit us at our MapleSoft Center on Alta Vista. We're open Monday to Friday, so you can always drop by and say hi. So thank you so much.
I'm going to use your slides to question answer.
Second.
I want next presentation.
Same presentation.
Same.
Yes.
Just to make some points which are relevant to the South Asian community. See, for example, you see number is mentioned, 427 at the bottom, or take 394 per 100,000 people. So if you look at Ottawa, is 1 million population. So we should see about 3,094 or say 4,000 cases per year. That's what it really, but how does it affect the South Asian community? It's different. Some communities are more prone than others. And so I just want to ask you, do you have any data, statistics about the South Asians? Where would you put it in 394 per 100,000, and how does it relate to South Asians?
Okay.
Go ahead.
The data I'm not aware of that would apply directly to South Asians. We do know, actually, first of all, one little point is that there's a little island of green down there on the Ottawa is right here, and it actually we're lucky to have a lower incidence. So it's up to 390 rather than the higher, just in Ottawa, because presumably, you know, we don't have a lot of people working in mining and in manufacturing. It's more, but the South Asians, they tend to, depending upon where they come from, they may have cancers that are related to the types, a different type of exposures. There are large areas in South Asia, for instance, that have high levels of arsenic in the groundwater, and arsenic is a carcinogen. It can cause skin cancers and kidney cancers and so on. So we may see different types of cancers depending upon where you have come from. We also know that as time goes on, that once a community migrates into a new place, then their cancer profile tends to shift to the prevalent profile within their community because they have similar exposures.
You all know we as a community are at the highest risk of heart disease. There's no issues about it. We are at the highest risk for diabetes. There's no doubt about it. Time and again, this has been proven. Diabetes, heart disease in South Asians. But when it comes to cancer, I'm talking about as a whole. The South Asian community, the number was not high comparing to other. However, the number is increasing now. I just want to warn you that the number is increasing and there are reasons for it. So that is the message I'll take it from this, that the number is increasing, and if we are low historically, but the number is gradually going up, so we have to take all the precautions. Now, what is cancer? She mentioned that the cells, you see that, they multiply. Very simple way to remember, very simple way to remember, and that is one male sperm and the ova, they unite, make a zygote, that's what we call it. So that zygote becomes a total human being. Their cells multiply. Then there is a check. You reach certain age, then that mechanism where the cells multiply, it stops or is controlled. I think this is something you should remember. Just remembering the little baby, a little zygote, male and female egg unite together, but it grows up to a full human being. And that is exactly the analogy that you can take it, that there is something controlling the multiplication of cells. I will not bore you with the names. The level of that enzyme then start dropping. But when it comes to cancer, it is exactly out of control. And why do they lose weight? Because the cancer cells, they are using all the energy that you need because the cells are multiplying. I think this is a question most of the time people do ask, why am I losing weight? Why am I feeling tired? Because those cells are using all the nutrition that you need. So that is a sort of analogy that I can give it to you, that there is a controlling mechanism that the cells multiply and then they stop after a certain age. Any questions at this point? Yes, Ram.
You just showed us some items that are much toxic.
Now we are going to come to
Uh,
the causes.
okay.
This is the mechanism
Oh,
of
not yet.
getting
Okay,
it.
no, no.
On this question, multiplication, yes, please.
We hear the terms benign and malignant.
We'll come back to that. Yes, another question?
Why you showing Ontario and Manitoba and Arctic with high rate of cancer? Is some particular region there?
In the prairie provinces, there are two possible reasons that I know of. In the far west, there is a lot of energy production and there are known carcinogens associated with the raw petrochemicals, the bitumen and so on. And also there's a lot of agriculture that uses carcinogenic pesticides. And also in the prairies, there's a very high level of cadmium naturally in the soil and also in the potash that's used to fertilize. And cadmium is a carcinogen. So between the various, depending upon the types of exposures, just because you're in the neighborhood or because of your occupation, and they're higher there. In some areas, in the remote areas, it's ascribed to smoking, but there's also high incidence of cancers amongst in mining communities. And you'll see in the 2001, there's a very high incidence in Yellowknife, which is associated with the high levels of arsenic there that were associated with gold mining.
How about Ottawa? It's a high rate in Ottawa?
No,
we
Ottawa
already
is lower.
talked about Ottawa is low. You missed it. Ottawa is a bit low comparing to the rest of the country, is that right?
Comparing to the surrounding regions, Ottawa and the part, Chelsea and so on up into Quebec, that's lower than some of the surrounding areas.
And I think in our region, within Eastern Ontario, I think there'll be about 2,000 families who face a cancer diagnosis every year within Eastern Ontario. So